The smell of pepper soup drifted through the streets of Enugu like a warm memory. Everyone in the neighborhood knew that smell. It came from the Okafor family restaurant, a place that had fed generations with love, laughter, and Mama Ngozi's magic touch. People said her jollof rice could fix a broken heart, and her laughter could heal the tired. It wasn't just a restaurant, it was home. Amaka, the youngest child, had grown up in that kitchen, while her older siblings, Chuka, Obi, and Ife, smiled and served customers in the front. She was always in the back, scrubbing dishes, peeling yam, and learning her mother's secret recipe. She never complained. To her, helping Mama was love. Every time her hands touched a pot, she felt closer to her mother's heart. When Mama Ngozi passed away, the restaurant went quiet for the first time in years. The air smelled of grief instead of food. On the day of the will reading, everyone dressed in black and gathered around the lawyer's table. Amaka sat quietly, her hands shaking. Deep down, she believed her mother had trusted her most, the one who stayed beside her in the kitchen till the very end. But when the lawyer read the words, her heart dropped. Ownership of the Okafor family restaurant is divided among Chuka, Obi, and Ife. Nothing for her. No mention of her name. Her siblings exchanged proud glances. Amaka sat frozen, her world suddenly quiet. The smell of home she loved so much now felt like it didn't belong to her anymore. Amaka sat still, her heart pounding in her chest as the lawyer's words echoed in her ears. Ownership divided among Chuka, Obi, and Ife. For a moment, she thought she'd heard wrong. She turned to her brothers, hoping one of them would correct it, say it was a mistake, or at least look sorry. But Chuka only leaned back in his chair, smirking like he'd just won a game. "You," he said with a mocking laugh. "Run a restaurant? Please, Amaka. You couldn't even balance school. How would you handle business?" The words hit her like a slap. Before she could speak, Obi joined in, shaking his head. "You're too soft for business. You cry when a customer complains, remember? You'd ruin everything Mama built." The room filled with laughter, cold, sharp, and cruel. Even Ife chuckled under her breath, pretending to hide her smile behind her hand. The lawyer shifted awkwardly in his seat, glancing at Amaka as if he wanted to say something but couldn't. The papers were official. Signed. Stamped. Done. Amaka's eyes filled with tears. She wanted to scream that she was the one who'd spent every dawn beside Mama, stirring soups, chopping vegetables, and listening to her laughter echo through the kitchen. She'd seen Mama work through pain, sweat, and love. She'd learned everything, not from books or meetings like her sibling, but from the rhythm of cooking itself. Her father sat in the corner, silent. He didn't even look at her. That silence hurt more than the words. She had hoped he would defend her, say something, anything. But he just looked at the floor, his hands folded tightly. It felt like the whole world had turned its back on her. When the meeting ended, her siblings clapped each other on the back, already making plans. Chuka talked about expanding the restaurant. Obi bragged about marketing ideas, and Ife said she'd handle the finance. They didn't even glance at Amaka as they left, laughing and chatting like nothing had happened. Amaka stayed behind, staring at the empty chairs. Her mother's name was on that restaurant. Her mother's recipes built it from nothing. And now she, the daughter who had lived in the kitchen, was treated like she didn't exist. She walked outside slowly, her chest heavy. The late afternoon sun burned bright, but the world felt dim. People passed by, smiling, calling her Mama Ngozi's daughter. She forced a smile back, but inside she was breaking. That night, she lay in bed replaying her brother's words. "You're too soft for business. You couldn't even balance school." She turned to her mother's framed photo and whispered, "Mama, they took everything from me." Her voice cracked. "But maybe they forgot who taught me how to cook." Tears rolled down her cheeks, but deep inside, something else began to rise. Not anger, not revenge, but a small, quiet spark. Something that whispered, "They don't know what's coming." That night, the house felt heavier than ever. The laughter that used to fill the kitchen was gone, replaced by silence. Amaka sat on the edge of her bed, holding her mother's framed photo close to her chest. The faint smell of pepper soup still lingered in the air, the last meal she had cooked before everything fell apart. Her eyes were red, her voice shaky as she whispered, "Mama, they took everything. The restaurant, your name, your dream, all of it." The moonlight fell softly across the room, lighting up her mother's smiling face in the picture. Amaka traced the frame with her fingers, remembering those nights when Mama Ngozi would hum softly while stirring a pot, saying, "Never let them tell you what you can't be, my daughter. People will doubt you, but the food will always speak for you." Those words replayed in her mind like a heartbeat. By morning, Amaka decided to visit the restaurant one last time, maybe to feel close to her mother again, or maybe just to say goodbye. She dressed simply, wrapped her hair in a scarf, and walked the familiar road to the Okafor family restaurant. The signboard still shone brightly, Mama Ngozi's taste of home. Her heart twisted when she saw her brothers inside, laughing and giving orders like they owned the place. She stepped forward, but before she could enter, Chuka blocked her path. "What are you doing here?" he asked coldly. "I just came to see the place," Amaka said quietly. "It still feels like home." Obi appeared behind him, crossing his arms. "Home," he scoffed. "You have no share here. Go back to your books or whatever you do now." Then Ife, always the sharp-tongued one, smirked and added, "Better yet, go sell food by the roadside. That's your level, Amaka." Her laughter echoed like nails scratching a wound. The customers nearby turned to look. Amaka froze for a second, feeling her cheeks burn with humiliation. She wanted to scream, but her voice failed her. The place that once smelled like comfort now smelled like betrayal. She looked past them, into the kitchen, her mother's kitchen, where she had learned to cook, to dream, to care. Every pot, every pan, every corner held a memory. And now, she wasn't even allowed to step inside. Without a word, she turned and walked away. Her tears rolled freely, but there was something different in her eyes, something fierce and unbroken. As she reached the end of the street, she wiped her face and looked back one last time. "They think I'm done," she whispered under. "But Mama, you taught me better." The wind carried the scent of food from a nearby stall, and in that moment, an idea began to bloom, small, fragile, but alive. It was the beginning of something new, something entirely hers. The next morning, Amaka woke up with swollen eyes but a clear mind. She was done crying. The pain was still there, but underneath it burned something stronger, determination. Her mother's words kept echoing in her heart. Never let them tell you what you can't be. If her brothers thought she was useless, she'd show them that the same hands they mocked were the ones that learned from Mama Ngozi herself. Amaka took a deep breath and counted her last savings, a few crumpled Naira notes she had been keeping in a small tin box. It wasn't much, but it was enough to rent a small food stall near the Enugu bus terminal, one of the busiest spots in the city. The place was noisy, chaotic, and filled with the smell of diesel and roasted corn, but Amaka saw possibility where others saw dust. She named it Mama Ngozi's Kitchenette, painting the name carefully on a wooden sign with her own hand. She kept her mother's recipes close. The pepper soup that made people close their eyes after the first spoon, the jollof rice that always had just the right spice, and the fried plantain that reminded everyone of home. The first few days were slow. People passed by, sniffing the air but rarely stopping. Some drivers waved but didn't buy anything. Still, Amaka smiled and kept cooking. She believed that once they tasted her food, they'd return. But then one afternoon, her siblings drove by in their shiny car. Chuka rolled down the window and shouted, "So this is what you're doing now? Selling food by the roadside?" Obi laughed. Ife even took a picture and said, "Perfect. We'll frame this. The fall of the useless sister." Amaka's heart ached, but she didn't respond. She simply stirred her pot and smiled. "One day," she whispered, "you'll come here to eat." That same week, the skies opened up in a heavy rainstorm. Thunder roared, lightning flashed, and people scrambled for cover. Dozens of travelers from the bus terminal ran toward her small stall, the only one still open with a roof sturdy enough to shield them. Amaka quickly handed out plates of hot food, offering smiles and comfort. "You can sit here, please," she told them gently, wiping down benches with her apron. The rich smell of her pepper soup filled the air, mixing with the sound of rain hitting the tin roof. People began to relax, eating and laughing through the storm. By the time the rain stopped, every traveler was full and amazed. One man said, "Sister, your food tastes like home." Another took a video and posted it online, calling her the heart of Enugu. The next morning, Amaka woke up to a crowd outside her stall. People from nearby neighborhoods came looking for Mama Ngozi's Kitchenette. The same air that once carried her brother's laughter now carried the smell of her success. Amaka stood there, apron tied tight, smiling softly to herself. "This is just the beginning," she said. And deep down she knew her mother would be proud. Weeks passed, and the small food stall near the Enugu bus terminal started buzzing with life. What began as a quiet corner with one stove and two benches slowly turned into the heartbeat of the air. Every morning, people lined up before Amaka even opened. The smell of her pepper soup drifted down the street, pulling in travelers, students, and workers like magic. Amaka barely had time to rest, but she didn't complain. Each plate she served carried her mother's memory. She greeted every customer with warmth and gratitude, always saying, "Eat well, it's cooked with love." People could taste the difference. Her food wasn't fancy, but it felt like home, and that made all the difference. Soon, photos and videos of her stall began circulating online. A food blogger posted, "Meet the girl who cooks with her heart. Mama Ngozi's Kitchenette is the taste of love itself." Within days, the post went viral. Influencers came to see if the hype was real, and left speechless after their first bite. Someone nicknamed her the roadside miracle of Enugu, and the name stuck. Even local newspapers picked up her story. One headline read, "From dish girl to star cook, Amaka's rise from the ashes." Her small stall was now a symbol of hope and hard work. Strangers stopped her in the market to take photos, and nearby vendors said her success brought them more business too. The whole community started rooting for her. With the steady income and growing support, Amaka saved every naira she could. She upgraded her stall, first new tables, then better pots, and eventually, a small brick-and-mortar space just a few streets away. She painted the walls bright yellow and orange, the same colors her mother used to love, and placed a large framed photo of Mama Ngozi above the counter. When it came time to name her restaurant, she didn't hesitate. She called it Amaka's Table, a place where everyone was welcome, no matter who they were. It wasn't just a restaurant, it was a space filled with laughter, stories, and the smell of something good cooking. She mixed traditional flavors with her own creative touch. Smoky jollof with grilled suya beef, plantain boats stuffed with spiced vegetables, and a egusi soup served in handcrafted bowls. People loved the way she made old recipes feel new again. Soon, Amaka's Table became the pride of Enugu. Families came after church. Travelers made detours just to taste her food, and people waited hours for a seat. Every night, she looked around at the smiling faces, the chatter, and the clinking of spoons, and she felt her heart swell. One evening, as she stood by the door watching her restaurant glow under the streetlights, she whispered, "Mama, we did it." The city that once overlooked her now celebrated her, and the useless girl her siblings mocked had become the name everyone was talking about. While Amaka's Table was bursting with life, the old Okafor family restaurant was slowly falling apart. What used to be a warm, welcoming place under Mama Ngozi's care had turned cold and chaotic under her children's control. The laughter that once filled the dining room was gone, replaced by constant arguing and tension. Chuka wanted more control, Obi wanted bigger profits, and Ife cared only about appearances. None of them cared about the food, or the love that made people come in the first place. Customers began to notice the change. The meals no longer tasted like Mama Ngozi's cooking. The soups were watery, the jollof too salty, and the smiles fake. Regulars who had been eating there for years started whispering, "It's not the same anymore." One by one, they stopped coming. Inside the restaurant, fights broke out almost every day. Chuka blamed Obi for spending too much money on advertising. Obi blamed Ife for losing customers with her rude attitude. The staff grew tired of the shouting and disrespect. Slowly, cooks and waiters began quitting, saying, "This place doesn't feel like home anymore." Bad reviews started appearing online. People complained that the service was slow, the food was terrible, and the owners were arrogant. One post went viral, "Mama Ngozi's legacy deserves better than this." The siblings tried to fix things with discounts and flashy promotions, but it was too late. The heart of the restaurant was gone. Meanwhile, Amaka's Table kept shining brighter. Her restaurant overflowed with happy customers, laughter, and music. People lined up outside from morning till night, waiting patiently for a taste of her food. The same dishes her brothers once mocked, her pepper soup, jollof rice, and plantain, had become the city's favorite meals again. Travelers came from nearby towns just to eat at her place. Even the old loyal customers of Okafor family restaurant moved to Amaka's Table. They said, "Her food tastes like Mama Ngozi's spirit is still alive." The comparison spread like wildfire across social media. Everyone started saying, "If you want real food, go to Amaka's Table." One evening, as Chuka was driving home, he decided to pass by Amaka's area, just to see for himself. When he turned the corner, his eyes widened. There was a long line stretching down the street. People were laughing, taking selfies under a sign that read Amaka's Table, while the smell of jollof rice filled the air. He parked nearby and sat silently in his car, watching as customers walked out smiling and thanking Amaka at the door. She looked confident, radiant, and happy, nothing like the timid girl he once mocked. Then he glanced across town toward their own restaurant, where the lights were dim and the parking lot stood empty. A painful realization hit him like a punch. The same useless sister he laughed at had rebuilt everything they destroyed. And this time, she did it without them. It was a warm Friday evening, and Amaka's Table was alive with laughter and music. The smell of grilled fish and spicy jollof rice filled the air as customers ate happily, chatting over steaming bowls of pepper soup. Amaka moved from table to table with her usual smile, greeting everyone like family. For her, this wasn't just a restaurant, it was her mother's dream reborn. But just as she was serving a group of travelers, the front door burst open. All eyes turned as Chuka, Obi, and Ife stormed in, their faces tight with anger. The music stopped, spoons froze in midair, and the whole restaurant went quiet. Ife was the first to shout, "So this is what you've been doing? You stole our customers." Her voice echoed across the room, sharp and bitter. Amaka blinked in surprise but didn't flinch. "Stole," she said softly. "No, Ife. I didn't steal anyone. I just gave them what Mama gave me, love and good food." Chuka slammed his hand on the nearest table, making cups rattle. Don't act smart, Amaka. You're ruining us. Close this place down before you destroy the family name. The customers began whispering. Phones came out quietly, recording the scene. Amaka looked around, her heart beating fast but steady. A few years ago, she would have cried or begged them to understand. But not anymore. She stood tall, wiping her hands on her apron, and said calmly, "The family name isn't what I destroyed, Chuka. You did, when you forgot what Mama taught us. This place is her spirit, her love, her truth." Ife scoffed. "You're pretending to be a saint. You were nothing but a dishwasher." Amaka's eyes softened. "Yes," she said. "And I learned everything while washing those dishes. I listened. I cared. I didn't just cook food. I learned how to feed hearts." A murmur of approval spread through the crowd. One old customer stood up and said loudly, "She's right. Her food reminds us of Mom and Ngozi. You people changed everything and lost your way." The room erupted in applause. Someone shouted, "We love you, Amaka." Another voice added, "She's the real Okafor." Ife's face went pale. Chuka clenched his fists, ready to argue, but the noise drowned him out. Amaka stood there, calm and proud, the timid girl they once mocked now standing in full light. The crowd's cheers grew louder, and someone's camera flashed. The next morning, the video flooded social media. The useless sister who outsold her family. It showed Amaka standing tall, her siblings glaring beside her, and customers clapping around. Comments poured in. She didn't steal the restaurant. She saved her mother's legacy. For the first time, Amaka didn't feel small. She didn't feel forgotten. She felt powerful, not because she'd won, but because she had done it her way, with love, patience, and courage. And the whole city finally saw her for who she truly was. A few days after the dramatic scene at her restaurant, Amaka was sitting in her small office at the back of Amaka's table, going through receipts and orders. Business was booming, but her heart still felt heavy. No matter how much success she found, the wound of how her family betrayed her never fully healed. Sometimes, she still caught herself wondering if Mom and Ngozi would be proud, or disappointed by how broken the family had become. Her phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. The number was unfamiliar, but the voice on the other end made her sit up immediately. "Amaka, my dear," the man said gently. "This is Barrister Okeke, your mother's old friend. I was the one who handled her will." Amaka felt a chill run through her body. "Yes, Barrister. I remember you. Is everything all right?" He sighed deeply. "No, my dear. It's time you know the truth. There was another document, your mother's real will. It wasn't registered because she was sick and wanted to update it quietly before she passed. In that letter, she named you as the heir to her recipes, her cooking brand, and everything tied to her name. She said you were the one who understood her heart." Amaka froze, gripping her phone tightly. "What? But the official will gave everything to my sibling." "That's because they tampered with it," the lawyer said softly. "I recently found proof that one of your brothers bribed my assistant at the time to hide the original letter and file a different version. I didn't know until now, but I have the evidence." For a moment, Amaka couldn't speak. Her mind raced. All the humiliation, all the pain, all the years she thought she wasn't enough. "So Mama never left me out," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. "She did trust me." "Yes," the lawyer said firmly. "She trusted you the most." The next morning, Amaka met with the lawyer in his office. He showed her the original handwritten letter, Mama Ngozi's words clear and loving. "My daughter Amaka has my spirit. The recipes, the name, and the heart of this restaurant belong to her." Amaka pressed the letter to her chest and cried quietly. With the lawyer's help, she filed a case in court. She didn't make noise about it. She didn't announce it online or seek revenge. She just wanted justice, for her mother and for herself. Months passed and the case made headlines. Family feud over beloved Enugu restaurant. The truth came out piece by piece, shocking the community. The evidence of bribery was undeniable. Finally, the court ruled in Amaka's favor. She was granted full rights to her mother's brand, recipes, and name. When the verdict was read, she closed her eyes and whispered, "Thank you, Mom." The city erupted in support. People celebrated not just her victory, but her integrity. The useless daughter had become the rightful guardian of her mother's legacy, and justice, at last, tasted sweet. The court's decision hit the Okafor family like a thunderstorm. Within a few days, legal papers arrived at their restaurant. The judgment was clear. The Okafor family restaurant must remove Mama Ngozi's name, recipes, and branding from all their menus, signs, and social media. The court also ordered them to stop operations until further notice. When the news broke online, people couldn't stop talking. Headlines read, "Justice for Mama Ngozi, the forgotten daughter wins." The video of Amaka standing strong in court, tears in her eyes as the judge declared her victory, went viral overnight. Millions shared it, calling her the daughter who revived her mother's legacy. Meanwhile, her siblings, Ife and Chuka, were drowning in chaos. Their restaurant lost most of its customers within a week. People boycotted them, saying they stole their mother's dream. The bank started calling about overdue loans, and the staff began quitting one after another. The proud siblings who once called Amaka useless now had no restaurant, no money, and no support from the community. But Amaka didn't celebrate their downfall. She didn't post about her win or boast online. Instead, she poured her heart into Amaka's table, which had become a symbol of love, honesty, and second chances. The small restaurant expanded rapidly, first another branch in Enugu, then one in Abuja. Crowds lined up to taste Mama Ngozi's recipes made the way they were meant to be, with care, warmth, and soul. One sunny afternoon, as the grand opening of her new flagship branch approached, Amaka sat at one of the tables, remembering her mother's voice. A table is not just for eating, Mama used to say. It's where hearts meet, stories are shared, and wounds heal. That evening, Amaka made a bold decision. She sent out 3 invitations, one for each of her siblings. The message was simple. Come and eat. Not as rivals, but as family. This was Mama's dream. When Ife and Chuka arrived, they looked nervous. The crowd was buzzing, the restaurant glowing with laughter and the smell of jollof rice, pepper soup, and grilled fish. They expected gloating, maybe revenge, but instead Amaka smiled warmly and pulled out chairs for them. This, she said softly, was what Mama wanted. A table where everyone eats. No matter what happened, we are still her children. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Chuka's eyes filled with tears. We wronged you, Amaka. We took everything from you. Amaka shook her head gently. No, you gave me a chance to prove myself. And Mama gave me her blessing to carry her legacy. As they began to eat, cameras flashed outside. Not because of drama this time, but because of peace. The world saw a family broken by greed, but healed by grace. That night, #ATableForEveryone started trending online. Amaka didn't just win her mother's brand. She restored her family's name and gave new meaning to what it means to share a table. Months later, Amaka's table had grown beyond anyone's imagination. From the tiny stall near the bus terminal, it had expanded to multiple branches across Enugu, Lagos, and even Abuja. People came from far and wide, drawn not just by the food, but by the story behind it. Each branch carried the same warmth, the same aroma of Mama Ngozi's recipe, and the same feeling that you were home the moment you walked in. Her journey captured the hearts of the nation. A documentary went viral online, titled From Dish Girl to Restaurateur, The Woman Who Fed a Nation. It showed her long nights cooking alone, the tears she shed after her siblings betrayed her, and the quiet determination that pushed her forward. It included interviews with customers who said her food reminded them of family, friends who had watched her rise, and even clips of her siblings realizing too late that they had underestimated. On the night the documentary aired, Amaka stood in the middle of her flagship restaurant. The lights were warm, laughter floated through the air, and the smell of jollof rice and pepper soup filled every corner. She walked slowly to a small table in the back, where a framed photo of Mama Ngozi stood, smiling as if she could see everything. Amaka lit a candle beside the picture and whispered softly, "They called me useless, Mama, but you knew. I was your recipe for strength." She paused, letting the words sink in, then turned to watch the restaurant. Families shared meals, friends laughed together, and strangers became part of the same table. The camera panned out, showing the vibrant, bustling space, a living tribute to Mama Ngozi's legacy. It wasn't just about food anymore. It was about love, resilience, and the power of staying true to one's heart. And as the night went on, the restaurant glowed, full of life, proof that a simple recipe mixed with courage and devotion could feed more than just a nation. It could feed souls.